So we see that Donald Trump didn't receive Nobel Prize. Which will be his reaction? And what about Tomahawks? Will Trump send them to Ukraine? This and other topics we'll discuss right now. My name is Iryna Uslova, and today with us is Yuri Rashkin, host of YouTube channel Rashkin Report in English, Rashkin News. Yuri, hello, glad to see you. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for inviting me. It's always a pleasure to be with you.
Donald Trump said thanks to Vladimir Putin, Russian dictator, because Putin said that Trump could receive Nobel Prize, but he even doesn't sure in it. What can we say about such a strange reaction and this thanks from Trump to Putin?
Well, I think that Maria Machado, and this is a name that now we're going to learn, Maria Machado received a Nobel Peace Prize is telling because while the Norwegian committee, the prize committee was asked why they didn't give it to Donald Trump, and their basic answer was that he was lacking courage and integrity. That Miss Machado clearly had that in spades. And it is interesting that sitting here in America, that Miss Machado is concerned about fate of a country that all of a sudden is near and dear to our president, Venezuela. And in that context, it was very interesting to see Donald Trump retweet or reshare or retruth or whatever it is that he does on her statement saying that Venezuela will be free. So this is perhaps another way where we see a president who fails at something to show it as a victory. Fine, why not? That is the least of our concerns. I think it is more concerning to people that there may be now a war brewing between the United States and Venezuela, which unfortunately only highlights the regionality of this new world order that we are seeing, where we see United States sticking to the Western Hemisphere or the Americas or whatever you want to call it, where we're going to be starting wars with Canada or for Greenland or for Venezuela, but it's all, our part of the planet. I wonder that means that for everybody else. So that means that Russia will have its part of the planet, China will have its part of the planet, and everyone will just have to sort it out who they're dealing with. This is part of this realistic point of view that Donald Trump brought into, remember that meeting with Zelensky when Zelensky had no cards. Turns out that apparently all our cards are in the Western Hemisphere. And with Nobel Prize, it's interesting that three things that motivate our president seem to be greed or vengeance or desire for recognition. And he seems to be doing pretty well on the first two, but the main trophy, the Super Bowl, the World Cup of peacemaking, he hasn't been able to achieve. But my question is kind of shifting because from this kind of a narcissistic triad of vengeance and greed and recognition that he has, his look at Nobel Prize has shifted into almost campaigning for getting into heaven. We are starting to watch a president who talks more and more about what is it going to take for him to get to heaven. And maybe he just feels that he has conquered everything on this planet, and Elon Musk wants to go to Mars and take that over, and Donald Trump would like to take over heaven. But it also could be that he finds himself in a position of an elder man on the way out. And for me, as somebody who was born in Soviet Union as a child, I left with my parents and have lived in America for 35 years plus. It reminds me of my childhood of Leonid Brezhnev, who would have this, chest full of medals and different recognitions because it was important to him. Those were things that he didn't get as a young man, so he wanted to get them before he passed. He got them, he passed, the world moved on. And so it's interesting to see how Nobel Prize matters to him now. and how Nobel Committee responded to him. Now, I was a little bit confused when I saw Ukraine essentially almost putting conditions for nominating Donald Trump because I thought that's really playing to your strength narrative really well. Hopefully you have the strength. Hopefully it is that important because if it is not that important, it's, who sets conditions to Donald Trump? That seems to be something you do if you're strong. But on the other hand, if he is able to help achieve peace between Russia and Ukraine, he will most notably deserve a Nobel Prize, and there's no questions, no conditions, none of it seems to be relevant. So I just looked at that and wondered what is the rhetorical meaning of that news. But I think that we will watch because I think it is universally accepted that if you give him prize now, he will stop working for anymore. So it's important to just kind of leave the door open that maybe next year he will have enough courage and integrity and show commitment to democracy and peace and all the things that he's fighting every day in America to deserve a recognition such as Nobel Peace Prize. We shall see. It is remarkable, Iryna, I will tell you, that as I'm watching with hope at the events that are unfolding in the Middle East, as I watch with kind of hope, I guess, what's happening with Russia burning and Ukraine showing its strength so much, and even Donald Trump speaking about applying more pressure to Russia, even if those are just words. There were some beautiful words, and who knows what will happen next. It's escalation of words, as Vitaly Portnikov says. But it's still actions that we need to see. So we will see what he will do because Nobel Prize will be again given out next year and a year after that. And so it's just a matter of Donald Trump sticking around and putting in the effort, which at least one of those things seems like it's always been a challenge, and the second one is emerging as a problem now.
Is it important for Americans whether Trump has the Nobel Prize?
Great question, because I don't think Americans really care about any of it. This seems something that is like a vanity prize where he's won a golf tournament and he needs to put a trophy on the fireplace mantelpiece. It's a weird situation where we look at it as scientists recognize, go, oh, look who won this year's Nobel Prize in science and physics, whatever. But when literature, peace, it's a cover of Time magazine. I mean, Donald Trump has been on the cover of Time magazine before more than once. So it's almost like a bingo of everything that you can do. And that's not a bingo game that most people play. Most people don't look at winning Nobel Peace Prize as part of completing a goal set, a bucket list. Like on my list, there's no bucket list, there is no Nobel Peace Prize. I mean, I'll take it, but it's not something I'm wasting my energy or, worrying about. And I think that's the case for most people. We are not envious of kings because kings are different from us. We're envious of people that are just like us but have a little bit more. And Nobel Peace Prize is a lot more than just a little bit.
Yes, and we see that the last rating shows that a lot of Americans, more than 68%, support Ukrainian support for Ukraine by Donald Trump, and even also Republicans and Democrats, the same percent. But they are not satisfied with economical and political situation inside the United States of America.
I think that the situation from the point of view of people living in the United States is rapidly disintegrating within the United States, and it hits everybody on a different level. Because if you're concerned, if you have a business with import component, tariffs could be killing you and on and on and on. I don't want to And I think that people are concerned about healthcare. People are concerned about if you're looking to know what's happening with the economy, we don't even have jobless numbers anymore because the government is now closed. It didn't close during the last administration, but now it's back to how it was before. So there's a lot of people who, and also the party that's in power specializes in bad news. They don't really deliver good news at all. And so I mean we have this maybe peace in the Middle East, but there's going to be a lot of criticism. There's going to be a lot of questions, and they themselves are going to be critical of things, and they specialize in criticisms. And this negativity is I think spreading to a lot of Americans because Trump's base to begin with is very fearful, very critical, is afraid of things. They're not thinking that things are going in the right direction. That's why they got to have Trump in charge. And for a while, they were happy because Trump in charge made them feel good. But then the reality set in, the economics started to set in, and so they're not as happy either. But there's also this bipartisan support for Ukraine, which never went away. There's a lot of propaganda that says that Ukrainians are bad in any number of variety of ways, from I don't know attacking Christians to destroying and being for corruption and all sorts of things, which are true in any country. And so we need to be aware that when we are concerned about what's happening in other people's homes, that we also take care of cleaning up our own mess as well. And with this situation, the people in the United States are looking with more hope at the Middle East than they're looking at Chicago. And I think that there's a lot of dissatisfaction about that. But there's also a support for Ukraine because Ukraine is right, because Ukraine was unjustly attacked and is a victim here. And there's also new support, I feel, for Ukraine because Ukraine is showing strength. And what this whole new MAGA movement represents is strength over might is right. And so all of a sudden, Ukraine has two cards, dare I say, which are that it is in the right and it is also strong. And it is also showing Russia that it's bleeding Russian economy dry. There's a lot of news articles about that right now all over the place because it's fascinating. We haven't seen this before. I just did an interview with Ben Hodges, who was saying that what used to be Russia's strength, because who wants to invade a country this big, is now Russia's vulnerability. So I think that there's a lot of support because of that in America for Ukraine growing as well. But I don't know that we will ever see the level of support. No, I'm sure we will never see the level of support from this administration that for Ukraine that we saw from the last administration. But it almost seems like the standards have changed as well.
But Trump told during his meeting with Alexander Stubb, Finland president, that he has already sold a lot of strong weapon to NATO, and NATO gave it to Ukraine, and it's one of part of supporting Ukraine, and that Trump can probably make stronger sanctions against Russian Federation, hit it by sanctions, but probably, maybe yes, maybe no.
It is very interesting the changing role that NATO is now playing, because we saw at first an organization that seemed fearful that it was losing America, United States support as a guarantor, because this is not a country that can guarantee anything, as I've just described. And at the same time, awareness is emerging that Ukraine is the real defense of NATO countries, because if Ukraine continues to withstand Russian aggression, then there is no war against NATO, and therefore the mission of NATO is fulfilled. But what is also emerging is this reality where NATO is refusing to let Trump go and is acting as a shield against Russia because Trump is not selling weapons to Ukraine. He's certainly not giving weapons for free. He's selling them, and not to Ukraine, to NATO. And NATO is actually specific countries, but that doesn't even seem to matter because the point is that we have different organizations that are working together to help Ukraine, and this administration in the United States has to deal with this, and it became kind of a crutch that is helping this administration pedal away from Russia. Because Russia wants what it wants. It wants all the pressure diplomatic that United States can apply to Ukraine. United States applied all the diplomatic pressure it could. Ukraine is still there because no matter what diplomatic pressure, Ukraine can't capitulate. And now, with this situation, all of a sudden, Europe and its insistence that it will not let Ukraine go to Russia is really changing a lot of um, it's changing reality. And this is something that when these planners, whether they're in Kremlin or White House or wherever, they lay out their best plans and then reality occurs. And it turns out that now maybe Nobel Peace Prize needs to go to Alexander Stubb, president of Finland, because we'll see, because nothing should be given in advance. But so far, I feel like he's making great strides to show how a European leader can be so close to Donald Trump that Donald Trump practically thinks that this is part of him, that this is his priorities. This is exactly what he wants. Because, well, Alexander Stubb speaks in the language of Trump, and he understands that Trump is the apex and the strongest and the smartest, and it does exactly what Alexander Stubb wants him to do, which is an interesting twist. But I think that Trump appreciates having him around. We clearly see that, and it's interesting for me as a very distant observer, as I'm sure for other viewers as well, to observe just how people are finding language to communicate with Donald Trump. And Zelensky has shown this as well, where you have to look at him at the beginning and the end of the sentence, and say nice things. It's almost like a different way to speak English language now. Not a noun and a verb, but like president, great president. Oh, well, I think that all in all, this is not the worst reality that we could be finding ourselves in, and it actually shows a lot of promise.
Ukraine sees and welcomes positive signals from the US regarding the provision of Tomahawk missiles. The technical details of using these missiles are currently being coordinated by teams from both countries, stated Ukrainian Foreign Ministry spokesperson Georgy Tichy during a briefing. And we saw that Russian dictator Putin in Tajikistan told that Tomahawks is only blackmails and ponty. And that's all. But we see that he's afraid, it seems to me, because of Tomahawks. And how do you think maybe we are now really closer to selling Tomahawks by Trump to NATO to Ukraine?
Well, if you listen to Donald Trump, he sort of kind of made a decision, which is a significant step on a sort of kind of his face on a sort of Mount Rushmore kind of. I think that, as Vitaly Portnikov so beautifully expressed it, this is escalation of words. And this escalation of words could potentially transition into escalation of actions. And that is a big question. And it seems that with even all of our viewers and listeners know that you have to be careful about trusting Donald Trump because he says things, but then he does things that are not necessarily the same. In fact, he has this kind of a nickname, Taco. Trump will always chicken out. I mean, our audience knows this very, very well. But when apparently, if he talks about you, it's very difficult not to lose your cool because if he is discussing whether he should give Ukraine tomahawks to strike you, it's hard not to take it personally. And I think Putin took it personally. I think he kind of seeing that Trump, well, you never know. With this Trump, you certainly never know. He could decide to make money, and if the question is about the launching systems, then I joke that if Ukraine buys a submarine and Tomahawk and a satellite, that there'll be a discount. with this administration. But there's also, again, Ben Hodges' opinion that Ukrainians will give them a Tomahawk and they will launch it off the back of a pickup truck. So, like, even though that right now the standard thinking is that these are water-based launched systems, um, desperation creates a lot of creativity. But I think that the other thing that we see with Tomahawks that is worth acknowledging is that Putin is losing in the escalation battle of words. Because if we're going to be speaking about Tomahawks, that his only card is nuclear deterrence. And now, if we're talking about Tomahawks, then it seems that this is something that, according to Russian propaganda, is used against weak countries. Well, I guess that means that Russia is weak. So that kind of starts to show again this narrative of Ukraine strong and Russia weak, and Russia has to again explain to Donald Trump and remind him that this will ruin our relationship. And who knows, because he sort of kind of made a decision. But I think that even the narrative of this conversation is already very helpful to Ukraine, very damaging to Putin, to his cloud of, amazing Putin. Well, now we're talking about, it's not a conversation he wants to see happen. And I think that ultimately the sign of Putin's weakness is his continuing horrendous attacks on Ukraine and in fact increasing because we see that the worst things happen when people lose hope. And I feel that this behavior by Russia shows that they lost hope that they will win. And so they're trying to increase the costs in Ukraine. They care less about what they're going to be able to do long term. The winter is looking pretty cold and miserable for Russia, both because it is burning and because its people are not able to get gas and keep warm or houses lit with a light. So I think that Russia is going to have a lot of problems, and as it is going out on this, smacking, hitting the door on the way out, it is being extra atrocious in its attacks more than before, and it is also utilizing Chinese help, which I think to me is a sign of again Russian desperation. Because China can't let Russia lose. And if China can't let Russia lose and Russia is losing, then I guess China's got to step up in some ways. So I think that all of the suffering and hardship that is currently being experienced by brave Ukrainian people, starting with you, is a sign that Russia is getting weaker and more desperate. And thank you for your strength.
Thank you for your support and good words. But we are brave and confident, and we are not afraid of such massive strikes because we see it since October 2022, and we prepared well. And these Putin's instruments they don't work at all. But he prolonged his massive attack against our infrastructure, and he still kills people and children in Ukraine, but it shows his weakness, and that's all. It seems to
It
me.
certainly does. It certainly does.
Donald Trump, talking about China, Donald Trump suddenly changes his mind about meeting with Xi Jinping. US President Donald Trump said he sees no reason to meet with Chinese leader. The reason was Chinese letters to other countries about export control, according to Trump's post on Truth Social. But what about trade deal and about relationships between Trump and Xi Jinping?
It's a difficult situation that Donald Trump put himself in the United States in when it comes to trade war with China, because this is a war that maybe at some point before things started seemed like a easy win because again, he surrounds himself with people who tell him things he wants to hear, and this sounds like a really bad idea that was kind of, oh yeah, it's definitely going to work. Oh, absolutely. Yes, yes. So they tried it, it didn't work. And we see this here in Wisconsin because of soybean farmers. First of all, because soybean farmers in the United States lost China as a market, and it's a huge market. It's the number one market, and now there's zero orders from China. So farmers are, well, they're freaking out. And this is where Trump administration, Trump is speaking about making farmers whole somehow and helping them. And essentially, look, he's going to use half of the money that he got from tariffs to pay the farmers who are hurting from his tariffs and his trade war. So it seems like a kind of a cycle of pointless activity in nature. And in this situation, that doesn't help relationship with China on that level. But when it comes to issue of TikTok, it seems like there is a lot of success, and it's hard to judge at what a point this has been finalized, but it doesn't seem like it's been finalized yet. But the direction that that transaction is going into is that it's going to be this huge mammoth social media is going to be owned by Trump supporters who are going to essentially turn it into something like the X, which has become what it is today. Not really a source of information, but a source of conflict and all sorts of negativity. And Donald Trump understands that TikTok was important in helping him win the election, or at least he views it as such. And so he's looking at that as an important project that will be owned by people friendly to him who are going to make lots of money off of this. But I think that meetings with China are not, whether they're happening or not, the tensions with China are going to continue. China is not going anywhere. Trump will have to deal with it. But looking at the military policy of the United States, our relations with China are, not military anymore because our military is going to be based in American cities and not concerned about anything else outside of our borders. I think we're still protecting Taiwan. We are protecting Qatar now. That's definitely, Qatar is going to get all of our protection, President promised. But the China situation, I think, is something that we're just going to see develop. And in the meantime, it's going to cost Americans lots of money.
Yuri, thank you very much for today's conversation, for your thoughts, your opinion, your time. See you next week. Take care.
Thank you. Take care.
Yuri Rashkin, host of YouTube channel Rashkin Report and Rashkin Report in English and Rashkin News. My name is Iryna Uslova. Guys, thank you for watching us. Subscribe to our YouTube channels, please. War and Politics 24 and Yuri Rashkin's YouTube channels. Thank you. See you later.